Good afternoon, classmates. Good afternoon, Ma'am Lahara. This afternoon, I will be sharing a few things about evaluation. And basically, evaluation is a very essential part of learning because this is something that we cannot take away from education. We cannot separate evaluation from teaching or from testing. Evaluation is very important in the teaching and learning of English or the language because it helps the teacher know whether the teaching methodology that was used was successful or not. Because sometimes the problem with us is that sometimes we have let's just say, we have these brilliant strategies and methods in mind. However, sometimes the problem is there is the lack of alignment between the topic, between the competencies that we want to acquire and the methods that we are using. So that's why we have to make sure that these two things are aligned. For instance, I am teaching research writing in senior high school. So if my goal is for them to learn how to write um, literature review, perhaps before we do that, we are going to have a practice first on paraphrasing. Am I right? So basically the methods that we are going to use should be in alignment with the goal that we have set. For example, again, for instance, since I am handling practical research, my goal is for them to learn how to paraphrase because that is a very essential skill in research writing, paraphrasing. So if I want them to learn paraphrasing, so I am going to give them first some certain texts that they are going to paraphrase before we proceed to research proper. If that is the goal that I want, of course, they need to practice paraphrasing. So that means I am not going to give oral recitation. Like, for example, okay, guys, so our goal for the week is for us to learn how to paraphrase. So, because of that, we are going to have a graded recitation. Okay, Pulano, what is paraphrasing? Pulana, what are the things that we have to remember in paraphrasing? Yeah, probably it might help a little if you are going to have a little recitation, a point of recall for the students to remember what are the key points to remember in paraphrasing. But of course, in order for us to guarantee that they are going to learn paraphrasing, they have to actually do it. That's experiential learning basically. So they have to do it. They have to experience writing. They have to experience paraphrasing in order for them to learn paraphrasing. So there should be alignment. And then the goal of evaluation is just to improve things, to improve the students' ability, the skill of the students, the performance of students, and of course, to nurture and develop the potential among the students. In language, we want to improve their ability in writing, in speaking, and other macro skills. And of course, also in performance, if you want to improve their oral communication skills, we also need to evaluate them. Evaluation is very important in order for us to be successful in molding or in improving their potentials. Next, as I mentioned earlier, evaluation is very important because it helps us judge the quality of the work. For the side of the teacher now will be able to know whether the teaching method that was adopted was successful or not. That's what I was explaining earlier about the alignment. But it's just one factor. So basically, you have to recall how will you how will you improve the methods that you did in your lessons. And for us students who are taking um, this class, I hope we can be the agent of improvement in our school. So when you return to your school, maybe you can help in um, reviewing the activities of your younger teachers or the younger faculty members, so that we will be able to make sure that there is alignment between the topic or the goal and then the methods that will be used and then the strategies. There should be alignment so that learning will be successful. Next, for the side of the students, evaluation is needed because the students will be able to know what are the areas that they require some attention. It will help them to figure out the things that they need to focus on, the things that they need to improve on. That is why evaluation needs proper planning. Up next, the steps of evaluation. Number one, determine educational objectives. Of course, we have to make sure that we have set the objectives. We have to make sure that we know what we want to attain at the end of our lesson, at the end of the unit, or at the end of the quarter. We know what are our objectives. We know the target that we need to hit. After setting objectives, you need to organize your learning experiences because you have to make sure that whether what the students experience help them improve themselves or not. Then we measure behavioral changes. Did they really learn or not? Were there changes? Are we even successful in inspiring them? Are we successful in touching their minds, inspiring their hearts? And of course, aside from observation, we can also measure this through tests, which we are going to perform later on, which is the last step, performing tests. Evaluation, assessment, and test or measurement are actually three different concepts. However, they overlap and they work together in terms of learning and teaching. So, in evaluating language, we need to take note of the following. First, a good evaluation tool that we need to use in English or in language is something that can measure the four language skills: listening, speaking, reading, and writing. Also, a variety of test items must be explored. Next, there should be a variety of test items. And each item, there should only be one skill that will be tested so that it will be clear and precise. Also, to avoid confusion. That's why, in evaluating language, it should be planned carefully. It must be designed well. And of course, in making that, it must be clear, or the mind of the examiner must be clear about what particular test item aims a particular skill. In addition to that, questions should be clear, or may I say, every item in the evaluation tool must be clear. It should not be ambiguous at all. As much as possible, it must be like that so that in just one reading, the students will know what to do. Because if it is confusing, tendency the students will also be confused. Also, in case of essay type questions, there should be an approximate set of answers. There should be a guide. For instance, what are the criteria that will be used in scoring an essay? What is the required length of the essay? What is the minimum number of words, or how many paragraphs should be there? Also, next, objectives should be set. Definitely, as I've said earlier, in, in making language evaluation, it should be properly designed. It should be planned well. Okay, that's why prior to making your test, diba, we make our own TOS because we try to plan things first before we actually do the test proper. Of course, objective type questions should be also set. Okay, they should test the real knowledge and ability of the students. Lastly, it must cover many areas of competencies because we already know that it is really demanding that they are asking the teachers to cover several learning competencies in every quarter in every school year. That's why, as much as possible, we try to cover many areas. But of course, we are the captain of our own ship. If we think that covering plenty of competencies in one sitting will be difficult for the students, we try to balance things first. Although it is suggested to cover many things, many areas, although it has been said that we have to cover many areas and competencies, however, it has been said that we have to cover as much as possible, or ideally, we have to cover many areas and competencies because we have to put an emphasis in testing the knowledge, um, testing the grammar and vocabulary, especially the composition of the students. I understand, teachers, that sometimes we are required to cover many learning competencies, but of course, we only have to test what has been taught. Okay, so let us not include the things that have not been discussed in class. Okay, um, and lastly, in terms of instructions during evaluation, there should be a brief, clear, and even instruction so that it will be easier again for the students to understand. The students will be able to answer to the required number of questions within the time limit. For instance, if the time given is 2 hours, then basically maybe we can give a lengthy exam. And we have to make sure that the test should be such that it can be done by an average student in the allotted time. And also, a good language evaluation test should be neither too difficult nor too easy. So it should be equally applicable to weak, average, and bright students. So that is why it must have easy, average, and difficult questions. And according to researchers, a good language evaluation should be a combination of objective type questions, short response type, and essay type questions. So basically, if we are just going to be very tedious and we are going to be very strategic and critical and strategic in planning our evaluation, we can reach excellence. So our goal is through evaluation, we can bridge the poor students to average and make them good and lead them to excellence. And once again, good afternoon to everyone and thank you for listening.